Affordable subcompact SUVs are a big trend right now in the auto industry. Almost every single car company has one. And here is Honda's with the HR-V. Today we're going to be taking a look at it and seeing if it is a good bang for your buck or if you should stick to one of the many other options out there. My name is Jason and you're watching Got an X. Now we're going to start with the engine underneath the hood of the HR-V. It's nothing really spectacular. You're going to get that standard 2-liter inline-4 engine that's going to create 158 horsepower and 138 pound-feet of torque. It's nothing too spectacular. There are definitely going to be things where it feels a little bit sluggish as you're going on. It's not necessarily going to be the fastest car, even though this is the sport trim. Nothing really changes in that matter. It's just going to be a solid driving experience. This is going to be something akin to a perfect car to be driving and getting you to and from work, not really necessarily for fun. This engine though is pretty reliable and solid, and Honda is going to back that for quite some time. Now let's talk about some of the key features of the design language of Honda. This is a new refresh version of the HR-V, and honestly it's not necessarily my favorite. I don't think it looks bad. Let's get one thing out of the way. I think it looks pretty good, but it is one of those things where this is a car that is going to be common traffic. This is just your normal headlights. You have a very undefined grille, and it's just a smooth overall front-facing look for the HR-V. And at the end of the day, no one really is complaining about that because it does what it needs to do. Like, moving on to the side though, you're going to have not too much, but I do want to talk about the 18-inch alloy wheels, which I think do look nice and give a nice accent. Moving on to the back, there isn't too much. It is your standard back, but the trunk storage space, because you're going to want to have a little bit of stuff, is pretty substantial. It is 55 cubic feet, 55.1 if I'm correct, but I'm just gonna round that down to be safe. But 55 cubic feet of storage space, and that's gonna get you through most of what you need. I think it is a great car to get you in and around the city. It doesn't stand out like crazy. It is just a nice pickup nonetheless. So if this is something you want, you like Honda, and you want something cheaper and more on the affordable side, but still is practical looks-wise, and on the outside, everything screams exactly that. Now let's take a look on the inside, talk about the interior, and get a little bit of the driving portion done. Now, first thing we're going to do talking about the HR-V, we're going to talk about the inside here. And the immediate conclusion that you're going to be drawn to is, if you look around, it's a little bit cheaper feeling on the inside. None of these materials really stand out as being the most high quality, and that's kind of what I expected going into this. Honda isn't necessarily here to be a luxury brand. They're not here to make you feel like wowed by sitting inside of it. They're here to be practical and comfortable. I guess for the comfortability part, I can say it is a little bit lacking, sadly. I don't feel too comfortable. I think my seat's a little bit stiff. It's a cloth interior for the seats starting standard, but if you do upgrade, you can get leather on some trim levels, but it's not necessarily anything too comfortable. I've been inside the leather ones, and I really don't think they're that great either. But that's just one of the things that you're going to immediately notice. Another thing is there's a lot of weird design choices on the inside here. First and foremost, these air vents I do want to talk about. This is kind of just a staple throughout all of the Honda line, but this one at least doesn't have the little joysticks to move around the airflow, but it's a little bit of a hit or miss pattern. Either you like it or you don't. Or I kind of fall into liking it. I just think it looks a little bit cool. The airflow is pretty good as well on top of that, so that is always a big bonus. Moving on to some of the tech inside of here, you do have a kind of underwhelming infotainment screen. I don't necessarily really even like the system installed in it, but it is practical. I mean, you do have Bluetooth on it. I believe you have wired CarPlay. Now, moving on to some of the tech inside of this car, it's kind of a little bit lackluster. The infotainment screen is not my favorite. It's kind of small, and I don't necessarily like the system they've put inside of it. I also just don't like a lot about it. It looks a little bit cheap and outdated. Speaking of cheap and outdated, this backup camera might be one of the worst I've ever seen on top of that, going through the screen, looking blurry and straight out of 2007. And honestly, it's a little bit shocking because this is a 2023 and it just got a refresh. This is going to be Honda's new HR-V line for quite a little bit of time here, and it really does just not hold up in comparison, which is something that sucks because it is overall a nice looking vehicle, but it's just not necessarily holding up the tech aspect. You do not have a fully digital gauge cluster. You have a hybrid one with analog and digital, and it's okay. it really does feel a little bit on the cheaper side through and throughout. One thing that I do like though is you do have a separate section for climate control down here. You have heated seats, no cooled, no option for that, and it's okay. One of the weird things though is storage space wise on the middle here, there's just random openings underneath here. There's a good bit of storage space in the actual center console, and that's nice, but there's just weird little divots here and there that I don't necessarily like, if we're going to be completely honest. I think there are just a lot of things in this car that just don't feel too great. You have blind spot monitoring, you have lane keeping assist, you have all of that good stuff, which is great for a car coming in so cheap, which is definitely where I think they put their money. They put their money trying to make it so that this vehicle is affordable, but you can still have a lot of nice luxuries without going too crazy on all the little details. Now, for the actual driving experience of the HR-V, it's pretty solid. I think the biggest thing you're gonna fall under when talking about this is the acceleration is quite lackluster. I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of it as a whole when it comes to acceleration and that driving feel on its own, but it is overall a pretty smooth and safe driving feel. I feel like this is like the perfect car if you just need to go to and from work and you don't want to do anything crazy. And driving isn't necessarily a fun thing for you, but it's a thing you have to do. I feel like this car fits that niche almost perfectly. It fits the niche for someone who's going to school and they want to just have something to get them to and from campus, but driving isn't their number one thing. And honestly, it's a good thing that this car exists. I mean, there's so many cars that try to do a lot more than just be a car, but not everybody is a car person. Not everybody needs a car that is going to do everything you can. This just feels like a tool to get you through your day, and I do think it does a good job in that. I can definitely see myself in one of these if I was in a pinch and I wanted a car that I could just drive on the daily. But as someone who prefers a little bit more of the nicer things in cars, that I don't think I'd drive this on the daily. So that's kind of where I think it ends up being. It's a good daily driver. It gets you to and from. It is reliable. But if you want some of the nicer things, it's not necessarily going to do everything you could ever ask for. Me personally, I think if this is in your budget and you're not looking to spend too much on a car, it does exactly what you need it to do. Let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you in the next one.